Welcome to the First Day Podcast. It is 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Wednesday night. That means it's time for a new show. I'm your host, along with my co-host, Leanne Hello, Michael Govier, and I'm really excited to announce today's special guest. That's right. We've been trying to make an effort to bring you personal stories from people who live them so that they can share their experience from their own human experience that may be of benefit to you, or it just might be interesting. At the very least, it's going to be of use to you in terms of entertainment and filling your knowledge bank for another hour or so. Let's give it up for the man himself. He's lived a life and then some. He survived it all and still lived to tell the tale about it. Give it up for Aaron Krueger. Woo! What's up, Aaron?
Oh, not much. Great to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me on to chat with you a little today.
Yeah, people are very excited. It's wonderful. Thank you for being here. Glad to have you aboard. Aaron, how many podcasts have you done in your life?
I've done one podcast. I talked for about 40 minutes about my stroke. It was a series about just, I think he entitled it Hope After Stroke. There's about 4 of them that he did. It was a friend of mine, Kevin. His father, Merle, has actually, he suffered 4 strokes. He's no longer alive, unfortunately, but yeah, it was great to connect with Kevin, and I told him about the outreach I've been doing, and him and his family have drawn some comfort from that. And, he inspired me to talk about it more in my life as I go forward. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. But yeah, that's the only podcast I've been on.
That's beautiful.
Oh, except for the Draft Champion podcast, the baseball podcast. Actually,
oh, how dare you?
Yeah,
How
I did a Jeopardy segment. Fantasy T-ball. I almost forgot because that one's so fresh in my mind, and it was absurd fun. That's the other thing I do is I make little videos on Twitter about baseball and snacks. So then Zach of the Draft Champions podcast had me on to do a little Jeopardy segment. So that one was just more of a fun thing than a serious thing.
That's awesome. I saw one of your Twitter videos. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, Aaron's honing his craft right now with his videos, and you can follow him on Twitter at Fantasy T-Ball. Is that correct? Fantasy T-Ball with a T?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's actually that's kind of where I reached out to you and got the ball rolling. I just wanted to know, if you had any tips for how to reach the most people, just because I like making people laugh. And from there, it kind of progressed where I shared with you that I appreciated your honesty about your struggles with opioids. And I opened up about my struggles with alcohol. And then obviously I've had a stroke as well. So that's kind of where our relationship kind of where it got started. And then besides your Cinema 9 podcast work that I also, follow, I sent you guys a Beetlejuice video this Halloween when we did that. So that I've interacted with you in a couple different places.
So awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. That's what it's all about right there. Look at this. Twitter just keeps on giving. More relationships that come about from a place that some call an absolute cesspool. But there is hope where you can find it, and home is where you make it. So if you want to make something your own in this world, it is possible. I always want to remind you guys of that, and that's what we do on Twitter. So I'm really glad Aaron's here. We're going to talk about all the stuff he just alluded to. Don't forget we have the book club, which is going on right now. What are we reading, and how is it going, Leanne?
Oh my goodness. So we're reading The Sleep Revolution by Ariana Huffington. And we have so far only done the first 2 chapters, which scared the bejesus out of me and made me, you will be very proud, Mike. I have slept over 8 hours, both the last 2 nights since book club. So yeah, it's a really good book. We're going to be reading, I just set up the schedule. So I think it's going to be like 2 chapters and it's going to take us right into like the end of April, I believe. So we're at the very beginning. So if you guys want to join us, it's free. It's an hour. It's Mondays, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. We start on time. We end on time. And
we do.
We'd love to have you.
Take it seriously.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Very strict with the time. Very strict with the time. Leanne, don't mess around. So yeah, come and join us. We'll give you the Zoom link. It's open to anybody. But all you have to do is ask. That's the only thing you have to do. firstdaypod@gmail.com is the email. Or you can DM us on Twitter, firstdaypod, or whatever social media you prefer. And yeah, that covers that. And don't forget, we never mentioned this enough, Leanne. We have the First Day Pod support zone on Facebook where you can engage in conversations. If you see something that you like today, or you listen to the show after the fact, and something struck you, like, I want to know more about that, you can engage with other people in the First Day Pod support zone on Facebook. Not my favorite social media, but it's, it's useful when you need it to be.
Absolutely. Oh, and I should let you guys know too. Oh gosh, Aaron, we're gonna get to you in just a second. So, but
No problem.
the other thing that we've been doing is a couple of us have been doing like we started as a 5-day challenge just to like get our water in, get our eating in, and all that kind of stuff, and exercise. And now it's just like it's a group of, there's 4 or 5 of us, and we kind of just check in daily and make sure that we're kind of like on top of. Look at Aaron drinking his water, good boy. And we're just trying to stay on top of it. So and Mike's doing a good job too. And I'm the only one in the actual challenge, and I'm not doing it. Haha. So anyway, so if you guys want to be a part of that, if you need a little push, if you need a little accountability, then you can ask to join that as well. And it's just through Facebook Messenger, super simple. And we won't berate you if you haven't done it, because you'll just be on my side if you haven't. So that's it, I think.
Okay, so it's now time to focus in on Aaron Krueger. Aaron, where would you like to start? You are interested in helping raise awareness about strokes and how real they are and how often they happen. And sometimes people might not even know they happen. Many strokes exist. The addiction part of the story, I think people are making assumptions. They assume the two are tied together, but they're not really, are they?
No, they're two separate issues. So I think just based in chronological order, it'd be appropriate to start with the alcohol issues and then go to the stroke from there.
Sounds good.
Take it away.
All right. So in preparation for the pod, I asked Govier. Is it okay if I call you that? I'm
He loves it.
More comfortable that way, I think. What episode I should listen to, and he referred me to Joe Chapman's episode, which I really enjoyed, and there was some takeaways from that I enjoyed, just to get a flavor of what's going on. So I think that our discussion today is going to be lit.
Love it.
Because we're going to learn, implement, and teach, and that's one thing I learned from the pod. And I really like
about lit already.
No, I really enjoyed that one. And then also another thing that I picked up on, or I understand, is that there are buzzwords, I think is how you refer to them, that you're not a fan of necessarily, like demons or relapse or slip up. And what I wanted to say is that I understand how terminology could have negative connotations, or it might be something that you would prefer people not say. And I'm probably going to use some of those words, and I don't mean anything by that. And I know that you wouldn't think I have bad intentions, but I do understand that when you're trying to get a message, it's not only what you're saying, but how you say it. So I could understand that there's words that people are more comfortable with. So I wanted to let you know that I am cognizant of that. And it's just something that I thought of, and I appreciate that. We might have different outlooks on that. I understand your outlook, and I'll do what I can to accommodate you.
And that I thought was beautiful, Aaron. But you don't need to. You, like you said, speak the way you're comfortable with. Mike just likes to, and he points it out to me because I use a lot of things not consciously, that I'll say things and he says there's a better way of saying that. And so but by all means, don't try to filter yourself today. Just speak as you would, because I think you're gonna have a really great story.
Sure. Yeah.
As far as those words you just said, demons, I'm totally out on that. Relapse is fine though. Relapse is a standard word, should be used everywhere, but I get the point. Go to town. So take us back in time. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine.
I didn't really have any experience with alcohol until probably my senior year of high school. Completely stayed away from the partying scene, or the social scene altogether. I was kind of just a homebody. I was a very, very shy guy. before my life as a a podcast guest, things like that, many years
How
down
old are
the
you, Aaron?
road. Right now I'm 39.
Okay, thank you. Just for audience clarity.
Sure. So I would say that was about 20 years ago. I think it was late senior year. I first had my first experience with alcohol. Got very drunk. But nothing really till college. And that very first day of college, my best friend and I, we thought, all right, now we're in college. It's time to start drinking. Here's where we drink, and we each filled up a water bottle of vodka. We thought this is how people drink. So
Oh
that was
no.
a night I don't remember, and I'm glad to be alive. And unfortunately, there's many nights like that in college where I drank enough where it could have been to the point of uh, serious problems. I think, like the blood alcohol would have got up to very concerning levels, I think. Um, so pretty much throughout college, that was a recipe for my friends and I. We would just drink to excess pretty much with all of the activities that we did, and we didn't really see an issue with that. I guess I felt like it helped loosen me up socially. For some reason, I thought that was something I needed to do. That continued on throughout my 20s, I guess. We would go out to bars as a group, and if they had a 2-for-1 drink special, we weren't getting like 2-for-1 mixed drinks or 2-for-1 single drinks. We were getting 2-for-1 pitchers, and
Oh
Yeah, I
thinking
dear.
remember those.
we
Yeah,
needed we each needed 2 pitchers for our first 2-for-1, and then maybe we would get another one.
of
So
course.
that happened into the 20s. Um, Unfortunately, drunk driving incidents, during this time, I was definitely very irresponsible, kind of loathsome behavior with the amount of drunk driving I did. Did get one DUI in college. I think my I was twice above the legal limit or something like that. I
Mm.
definitely, don't remember the evening that well. There was a time in my mid 20s. The longest I ever drove, was about an hour. Blacked out. I mean, I didn't remember the drive. So I mean, very, very, very lucky to be alive.
Mhm.
Very lucky to
Yeah,
be alive.
when that happened, did you take time, take stock, like, whoa, man, I need to get my life together or something like that, or did you just kind of keep on cruising?
Kept on cruising. Yeah, that should have been a great opportunity for a wake up call. And then so approaching the late 20s. It just seemed like I always felt like I had to be partying even if other people weren't. I was the first person to have a drink, the last, to start off the day, the last person to have a drink to start off the night.
Mm.
Um, Always drinking even if other people weren't. And then where it progressed was in my early 30s, drinking alone. And even then, I didn't really see a problem. I guess I shouldn't say that. There was times I saw a problem where I would have given anything in the world to stop drinking, but I just didn't find a way out of that in my late 20s or early 30s.
Mm.
I would tell myself, you need to stop drinking. You need to stop this. Maybe try, oh, just have one drink, just have 2 drinks. But then I would fail and I'd get drunk again, and then the cycle would repeat itself. So this is, uh, um, and I'll continue on from there, but it does kind of work into what I was going through at this time. I would call a cycle of self-loathing,
Mm.
Yep.
because I would set these goals for myself and I'd fail, which would inevitably lead me to more drinking.
Right.
And that was something I never was able to break, the cycle of self-loathing necessarily while I was drinking. Did you experience a similar cycle of self-loathing with your opioid issues?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's just drenched in it, pure shame and loathing and just like a lot of apathy and hopelessness wrapped up in all that stuff. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying here right now. I would sit there and I would make food and stuff myself and not even have a lot of hope for anything in particular other than these mindless activities. So I understand.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I thought about kind of as I was reflecting on, what got me here and what I'd talk about today. The cycle of self-loathing, that was definitely tough to break, just So I just kind of, and then when it reached a boiling point, I guess in my these, I don't know, mid 30s or whatever, I was drinking alone, and I was exhibiting behaviors where like I was hiding how much I would drink. So if I
Mhm.
was at my parents' house, everyone would be out in the yard, and I'd be running in, and I'd be pulling pulls right from the bottle. So I knew it was wrong because I was doing it behind people's backs. Like I knew people would think, "Oh, it's really wrong how much he's drinking," but yet I didn't stop. I knew it was
Mhm.
something I was shouldn't be doing, for my health, for a myriad of reasons, but I wasn't able to stop.
Yep.
When I got
But
married,
did
yeah,
you really want to stop too? I ask this question a lot. Like honestly, a lot of times you don't even really want it. You get to a point where you want to stop, but there are also a lot of periods where you're supposed to want to quit, but deep down inside you really don't want to.
I told myself I wanted to stop. You know, I would think about wanting to stop, but inevitably I would continue drinking. So I don't know how much I really wanted to stop because I liked the idea of being drunk. And um, at some points, I think you know it. At some points, I was definitely depressed throughout those years, and that was a way of maybe
Oh
being
yeah,
less depressed. I guess one thing I thought of is there's always going to be a reason to drink if you want to give yourself an excuse to drink. It could be to take the edge off, to drown your sorrows, to celebrate. So you had a bad day at work, time to drink. You had a good day at work, time to drink.
that's right.
Mhm.
You know, a loved one passed, oh, it's time to drink. Celebrating the birth of a loved one, time to drink. Every single thing in life, there's an opportunity to drink. Yeah. So that's what I've found is if you want to find a reason to drink, you will find one. But if you're able to find a reason not to drink, that's what I needed to get out of the cycle. And for me, that was my relationship with my wife and my children.
Oh wow.
Well, that's
So my
beautiful.
wife, she was very patient with me early on. We talk about trying to get my drinking under control, and oh, let's see if I can just do beer. Oh, good. Now I just did beer successfully. Hey, how about if I only have two mixed drinks? Oh, great. Then it escalates from there. So there was times where I was definitely dishonest with her, lying to her about how much I drank, and then unfortunately some of the most behavior I'm ashamed of. Um, and I guess I'm not ashamed of being an alcoholic or having a problem with alcohol. The thing I'm ashamed about is the actions I did during that period, like calling my wife terrible names or just treating her badly. That's what made me want to switch. Is switch up my behavior, my interactions with her or my interactions with the children. I knew I was not setting a good example for them. So eventually she got less patient and she said, we need to think about separation, or I don't remember the exact terminology, but she said enough is enough. I left that Sunday, and I was going to go stay at my sister's, but once I got to my sister's, I thought, I had a bag packed, I brought food over there, etc. I looked up, where's the nearest AA meeting. I went there, and I showed her concrete change, my plans of to what I wanted to do going forward, and then
Hmm.
from then on, I've been lucky enough to not drink. So it was that ultimatum that there's serious problems with this marriage. You need to make a change, and then I made the change.
Wow. May I ask where because did you meet her in like when you were in your 20s or where did you meet her? Where did you marry her? Like
Mhm.
where does she fit in the timeline?
Um, yes.
Ish.
Yes, I met her in my 20s, but that was more as a casual acquaintance. We started
Okay.
dating in our mid 30s. It's been about 6 years now, I think.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
she definitely wasn't with me for a lot of the partying. Not to say we didn't party
Mhm.
together when we first started met, because she we would go out together
Yeah.
to a comedy club or whatever, and we both have drinks. But my partying became more than she was comfortable with, and more than I was
Mhm.
comfortable with.
Mhm. That's
Yep.
fair. That's fair. And may I ask how long it's been that you haven't been drinking?
Yes, it's been since October of 2019, so a little over 2 years.
Good for you. Good for
Yay!
you.
Love
And
that.
can I ask, and I know that you've got like still a lot of story to go, but do you still find like because your why was so strong, like your kids are there and your wife is there, is that what keeps you going, or are there still days that you think about
Oh,
it and you want to go back to it, or
I apologize because my wife, I heard her in the background, which is against the show notes. Do not be distracted by the background. But she said, no, you stopped drinking in 18, you had your stroke in 19. So,
Oh, thank you.
Clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very
yes. So
much.
I'm sorry. Please repeat your question, but I wanted to get the timeline correct.
No, that's wonderful. And what's your wife's name?
Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
What's up,
Um,
Jamie?
yeah, that's awesome. No, that's totally fine. She can be part of the show if she wants to hop on.
That's
Um,
right.
so what was my question? My question was, so your why for stopping was because of your kids and your wife. I would imagine that that is still like high of
Mhm.
that's why you're not drinking, but do you have that feeling that you want to still drink, but you're just doing it because or you're not doing it because of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I do sometimes have a feeling that when I want to drink because I love the taste of beer.
Mm.
Like I used to drink many different kinds of beer, and that was I just loved it. I mean I guess I loved the feeling of being drunk. I don't miss that as much. The being drunk part of it, the taste part, sure I still miss, but the health benefits I think have been for me really indisputable since I stopped drinking. My face is no longer puffy. I wake up feeling better in the morning. I don't snore at night. I used to have issues sleeping, things like that. So for me, there's been a noticeable difference in health. And when you ask about like, do I still crave drinking? So the answer to that is yes. But I was actually cleaning out my car, and
Mm.
there was something in here I got from my counselor,
Oh,
and it
wow.
just talks about a risk reward analysis.
Okay.
And I wrote down the rewards of using, and the best I could come up with why I needed to keep drinking was it's great tasting, it alters my mind, and I laugh out loud more, which there are other things in this world that are great tasting, mind altering. um, I probably wanted to alter my mind because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin and I wasn't necessarily enjoying my day-to-day life.
Good point.
But then the risks of using, you got an additional, DUI, my marriage, health issues, blacking
Mm.
out, expensive, lying to myself and to others, ability to drive. I would go to jail if I got another DUI. This is not on the list, but if I got a DUI, you can't go to Canada.
Right.
That's
Come
right.
on.
We know all about that. We're very familiar with that here, the two of us. So
Yeah, so that would
yeah.
that would be an issue because I like to visit baseball stadiums. I've already seen Toronto, but if they got a new stadium, I got to fill out all this paperwork and
Mm.
you know.
There you go.
But I
I
think
thought you were gonna say because you wanted to come and see me, but that's fine. It can be baseball. That's
yeah,
fine.
Okay. All right. See how it is. Yeah.
two birds with one stone.
There you go.
All those things, though, that you're mentioning.
Mhm.
What were any other revelations for the reasons that you think led to this behavior? Did you look at your adolescence and other issues from your younger days? Or, I mean, because usually there's always something that's going on that whether you had a lack of self-worth due to parents who are neglectful or things like that, these things happen and then they end up burning us later in life without us even realizing it.
No, I had a great childhood. I think that um, it's a lot of the culture that I live in Wisconsin, so
Mm.
I was just casually looking up Wisconsin, and it's like 7 of the 10 drunkest cities in America are in Wisconsin. 12 of the drunkest 20 counties are in Wisconsin. So,
Party school, man.
yeah,
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 How far
and
is Wisconsin from us?
it's not very far.
across a
mean,
lake.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
we'd have
I've
to cut
met
over.
in Windsor, I met quite a few Wisconsin boys, and so that's like I feel like that's a bit of a
Mhm.
drive to come and just party for the weekend. But
Yeah, they're basically Canadians like Michiganders. It's the same thing.
And I don't know the nitty gritty behind those details. Maybe the drinking statistics for Wisconsin are largely driven by college students. I don't know. I
Mhm.
can't pretend to know that, but I
Right.
know that one time I was at a 3-year-old's birthday party, and it was 10 in the morning. And I remember my good friend's sister-in-law, you know, she's looking around the room and she's like, "Why is everybody drinking? It's 10 o'clock in the morning at a 3-year-old's birthday party." And I'm like, why wouldn't we be? As I had a Bloody Mary in one hand and probably my second beer in the other. So
Mhm.
there is certainly a culture aspect to it, and some things. But at the same time, I don't necessarily blame it on that. I think all the choices I made were my own. I think, like I said, I was the one who kept partying after other people stopped partying. I was the one who started off the drinking. So while I think your environment can certainly influence it and maybe make it harder to not do it, you're ultimately responsible for your own decisions. Um, and I
Yes.
think thinking about, you asked if I was still tempted to drink. I do still miss the taste of it, but right now in my basement, I probably have 200 beers that I just age down there for. Some of them been down there for 6 or 7 years. I age them for my friends, and I give them to my friends because I know that they enjoy them.
Oh, wow.
So I still have a little bit of a complicated
Interesting.
Yeah.
relationship with alcohol. It's like I don't think alcohol is bad, and I have no problem with any adult enjoying it responsibly, reasonably, or however they want to enjoy it. For me, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And one thing that stuck with me from a guy I met is his take on it was, it's not the seventh or eighth beer that is a problem for me. It's that first one.
Mhm.
And that's what it is for me. Because if I have one, that's where I just keep going over and over again is I make it up to that ninth or 10th beer. So for me, I can't have one. I have no problem with anyone else in the world having one if they want to, but I can't. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And may I ask, so you were
That's interesting.
saying that your wife, obviously, when you guys were younger, you guys did party together. And does she drink now, or does she not drink at all, or does she occasionally?
Sure. Yeah. I tell her I have no problem with her drinking, but she has also kind of just
Mhm.
phased away from it. I know she had a glass of wine at a wedding we were at.
Mhm.
Um, in the last year. That's all I can think of. She
Yeah,
really doesn't drink that much anymore.
that's nice.
It might make it easier for me.
Mhm.
It it might help, but I am very comfortable being around people that drink, and I know that some people aren't. But um, yeah, I know I have so much to lose if I would go down that path again, and I like not drinking now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay.
Yay! See, these are the things that happen and they never seem possible at one point, and then a lot of time goes by and a lot of work is done and behaviors are altered, and suddenly you are capable and able to do things that you weren't really thinking you could do. And Aaron is showing that. He's also admitting very clearly, by the way, you know, do you feel you must feel you're on a pretty solid foundation right now?
Mm.
Because if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be. And then therefore you would be on this flimsy territory of, oh man, I feel like I could relapse any day now. But there's a lot of people, especially in the 12 steps, and you mentioned going to AA as part of your process to getting to this point, that say, it could happen to me tomorrow. Tomorrow could be my day. And I don't always prescribe to that. I mean, I understand if it works for somebody, great. Do your thing. Do what you have to do. But it could be pretty draining, and it might be deflating for me to constantly think that, I'm on the brink. Tomorrow could be the day where it all falls apart for me. That could be exhausting, but it's also a reminder of, hey, that's where you were, and you need that perspective. So I can see both sides of that kind of thinking. I'm curious what you think.
Um, yeah, I took a lot. Um, there was things I took from AA or enjoyed, I guess, but things I didn't prescribe to as well. And even before I came on the program today, I kind of looked up AA because I know they can sometimes be a little hush hush or wary of who talks about
Oh, that's right.
AA.
Mm.
And
One of the
and
traditions. Keeping
yeah,
secret.
and they don't want people doing it for recognition, power, personal gain. But I'm not out here doing any of that. I don't represent, AA. I don't actually even go to meetings anymore. But they want to say things like it's about the message, not the messenger, because that's what it is. So I am comfortable, saying I was in that. I'm not a spokesperson for them or anything, but I never followed the
You could be.
12. I never followed the 12 steps. For me, I didn't necessarily prescribe to that. What I really got out of there was the personal connections with people, the
Mm.
stories of their triumphs, the stories of their defeats, all of it. I'm not a huge hugger, but I would hug strangers in there. I mean, these people are weeping, when they're sharing their story, and it's so raw and it's so real, and that's what I got out of it, was the stories of how it had ruined their lives, and the path that I might have been headed down.
Wow.
The one thing that I would caution to people about AA is, there can be some bad actors in there, and by that I just mean there are people that are forced to be there. A diversion program so that they can avoid jail. When you go to AA, you're the only requirement that they have, and they state, is the desire to stop drinking. And there could be people there that don't have the desire to stop drinking. There could be people there that are there because the court is telling them to. So for someone who's serious about stopping drinking, just be wary, or be alert of the
Aware.
groups that you're breaking off and having talks with. Because if you're having groups with people who are like, it's okay, to have a couple, maybe that's not the group you should be talking to. Maybe you should seek out a couple different individuals there, because that was just my experience with that program.
That's great advice. I never would have thought about that part, because in my head I was like, oh, but that's okay. You guys are just in a meeting and you're just listening. So it's okay if the guy next to you feels differently. But you're right. You become like a brotherhood or like a family that you do meet outside. That's a really great point, Aaron.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you do break off with these people, or um, have these individual discussions. And at one time, someone came up with the idea like, "Oh, I'm going to be a soft sober," which meant
Mm,
I'm only going to like drink enough so I don't get drunk. And it's like, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. And good luck to you, but that doesn't work for me.
mm-hmm.
Fool's gold. Fool's gold. Only because, yeah, of course, do what you want. Do what you
Right.
think is best for your own life. But we also have things now. It's called science and data. A lot of these things are about learning what we've done in the past and what works and what doesn't. And unfortunately, too, AA as a program, it has a really, really high failure rate. There's also a lot of relapse in that, too. But it's, as I've said on the show many, many times, Leanne, AA 12-step programs, they're wonderful, wonderful welcome points to anybody who has no idea what to do. It's like a first step to connect with people. So I will always vouch for the 12-step community in that respect. I've been to 1,000 meetings, and I understand it all, and I just want that to be clear. Aaron, what is one thing you would tell somebody if they're seeing this or hearing you today who would be in a similar situation, who might be struggling with an addiction that they can't seem to cope with, or they can't even seem to know what the first step would be? Could you offer one piece of advice for someone who feels hopeless?
Wow, it's like you're inside my brain, just knowing what I want to say.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
The one piece, I don't know, besides everything else I said, is what Joe Chapman said when you interviewed him. He talked about he would have friends that would say, "Oh, you're not an alcoholic, or you don't have a problem with alcohol." And you shouldn't let others dictate if you have a problem. If you feel like you have a problem, then I think you're probably being able to be pretty honest with yourself. Conversely, if other people do say you have a problem, maybe be willing to listen from that aspect of it. But if people are saying you don't have a problem, I would say that you're more qualified than they are to know if you have a problem. The reason I think that is because you're not as honest with those people possibly as you are with yourself, or even the other members of AA. I wasn't telling my friends that I was swigging bottles of whiskey when I woke up in the morning or before I go to bed at night, but I would tell people at AA that. So it wouldn't be shocking if your friends wouldn't think you have a problem because you're going to hide a lot of your behaviors for them. So don't ever doubt that you have a problem if you think you do. Be confident in your choices, and um, if you want to look to change your life, there's no reason to let anyone tell you differently.
Wow. That's really, really important. Wow. That's great.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Joe Chapman, by the way. Hi, Joe. Joe told me today, Leanne, he wants to contact me to talk about starting his own podcast. He was so thrilled with his effort
Good
and
for
the
him.
feedback that he got from other people that he is inspired to take his message to the airwaves. So thank you, Joe. We will talk about that very soon, Joe. I'll text you. Obviously, this is not the medium for us to be having a conversation while Aaron's on the show. So is this a good time then? Can we? Oh, go ahead.
Were you about to say, is this a good time for a transition?
Yes, there we go.
That's right. Hey, this is the First Day Podcast. You're listening live or you're watching live. Actually, you're not listening live. You're listening on your own time. But we're live here. If you have any questions for Aaron, feel free to drop them in the live chat. We will happily try to answer them. I assure you. Firstdaypod@gmail.com if you want to send off-air comments. Yes, this is a good time to transition, Aaron, into Be Fast, maybe some stroke talk. What do you think?
Sounds great. So, I'm done drinking. This is 2018, October. I have a year. November of 2019, November 15th is when I had my stroke. So from 18 to 19, I have a full year where I am like a baseball player coming to spring training. I am in the proverbial best shape of my life. I'm exercising. I'm eating well. I'm emotionally great. I'm physically great. I'm mentally, spiritually. I'm legitimately in the greatest shape of my life. And then I just had a stroke out of nowhere.
Oh, that's not the story we want to hear.
So yeah, it was completely out of the blue. Normal day at work. Wife and the kids went out grocery shopping. One of them was left behind with me. I was upstairs, and it was like a bomb went off in my brain. There was some noise to it. I can't remember. Almost like static. I can't fully remember it right now, but it was like an out-of-body experience. I don't know if you've seen the movie Being John Malkovich.
I have, yes.
He has other people in his mind, and he's not in control of himself, and that's the best way I can describe it. It was like I was looking down on myself, but not able to control myself. So I could think at what I consider probably 100% speed. And I thought, what is wrong with me? Why can't I walk? Because I got up on to walk, and it was like I was on a ship. I couldn't walk straight at all.
Wow.
And then I tried to call out to the youngest, who was still home with me, at home with me, and it was like a garbled mess coming out of my mouth. I could not speak English. I could think clearly, but I couldn't speak. So it was like a complete out-of-body experience. It was crazy.
What happened leading up to this? Like,
perfectly normal day.
Nothing.
I went to work. I was watching TV. Something snapped in my brain, or more precisely, I got a blood clot that traveled into my brainstem. I smelled something. It smelled like ammonia. I didn't know what was going on, and then it was just like a bomb went off, and I don't know what happened. So then,
That's intense.
Called my wife, and she said, call 911 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
My
intense.
gosh, Aaron.
I feel so uncomfortable right now, but I mean, that means you're telling a good story, because that is real,
and,
real shit.
It's kind of scary, because we were 3 or 4 minutes away from heading out the door. My son and I had to go shopping at a store that would have been about a 20-minute drive. So I could have been on the freeway and had a stroke. And then it's like half of your body is slowly dying, and the other half is trying to compensate. I did get an adrenaline rush. So, maybe one arm was drooping, but then they went up a little. So you got an adrenaline rush that, maybe it convinced the doctors like they didn't know what was going on because I consider myself an old man based on my creaks and joints and but they said I'm a relatively young man, so I'll trust them. And they had no idea what's going on. So you mentioned be fast. So how you can recognize a stroke is the person's balance off? Eyes? Are they complaining about vision problems? The F is for face. Is there a droop in their smile or their eyebrows? Will one not raise? Have them raise their arms? Is the A. Speech is the S. Is it slurred? And then the T, the time. You have about, depending on the doctors or how comfortable they are, 3 to 4 hours to get a TPA administered at the hospital. And what TPA is, it's a clot buster. A clot buster. Easy for me to say.
Yes.
It opens up blocked blood vessels, restores the blood flow to your brain. And the reason you want to take that is because your chance for recovery is much greater, just a full recovery of your all your faculties. It opens things up. The downside of it is there's a 3% chance if you take it that you'd have a brain hemorrhage. So it would cause further bleeding in your brain, and it would worsen the symptoms potentially or cause death.
Okay.
So that's something you have to weigh is, do you want to take that 3% chance, but you can have a better recovery because it's going to free open the blood clot. For me, all sorts of things went wrong that night. The MRI machine was down at the hospital, so they couldn't get in and take a scan of my brain to see if I had a stroke. The adrenaline was kind of kicking in, so my arms were straightening out. Maybe my smile was getting back to normal. They weren't sure if I had a serious stroke. Did I have a minor stroke? They didn't necessarily know what was going on, so I didn't take that risk, that 3% risk. If I could do it again, I don't know if I would do it again, or if I would make a different choice. That's tough to say. I'd consider it.
Mm-hmm.
They go over the risks with you. They tell you the pros and the cons, your recovery options, things like that. Even when I went to bed that night, things were working pretty well. I could still, squeeze my wife's hand or raise my arm or etc. I woke up 4 or 5 hours later, and the right side of my body was completely dead.
Wow.
I couldn't wiggle my toes. I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't do anything.
Wow.
It took 4 days for me to be able to just move my thumb sideways.
Oh my gosh, Aaron.
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of a jokester or whatever. So I wanted my wife to make me film me doing a film review where I gave a review, and I gave the movie a sideways thumb. I couldn't give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down because I couldn't move my wrist, but I wanted to let people know that I had movement. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And just speaking a little bit more about the videos I make or jokes I might make about strokes. I have a little off-color humor, a little irreverent. I'm fully aware that people die from strokes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully aware that people might end up in a wheelchair the rest of their life. By no means would I want that to happen to them, and I would be sensitive as can be if I had a conversation with them. For me, I'm comfortable joking about it because maybe that's a way I can better reach people, and if you don't joke about it, you're going to cry about it. I mean, that's how I felt about it, and I did cry about it those first few days because I couldn't move at all, and that was really a terrifying experience.
Absolutely. My Lord.
I mean, if anyone's qualified to talk or crack jokes about it, it's probably you. So I understand your point, and we appreciate that. But you do you. You've earned the right. Because you did have the stroke, you're here talking to us today. We can obviously assume that you recovered and you came back. So we know that you've been on the other side, which to me gives you carte blanche to do whatever you want. I already think you should do whatever you want in this life anyways, but that's just another reason to be free and express yourself as you see fit. But
Yep.
we appreciate your
Yeah.
qualifiers. We do.
Yep. I just know, it can be a serious issue. And there are stroke therapy groups for people after they've had a stroke. And I might recommend joining one of those. For me, I didn't necessarily need to do it because I had a really good relationship with my physical therapist. I just felt like I said everything I need to with them, or good relationship with my, and then, so I was in the hospital for about 5 days. And then I was an inpatient for about 3 weeks after that. And what happens with a stroke, what people don't realize possibly is, besides the physical paralysis or whatever you might have, the mental toll is incredible. It was exhausting to try and open or close my fist, or to turn my wrist, or to wiggle my toes. It mentally wipes you out. They set you up for an hour of physical therapy, an hour of speech therapy, and then an hour of, I don't remember the term for it, physical therapy. One of them's your lower body, the other one's your upper body, and the last is the speech therapy. So you'd have 3 hours a day, and that's all the human body can really handle, because you're wiped after that.
Wow. Yeah.
That's bonkers. How do you? Not to skip ahead here, but how do you look at it now that you're recovered? And from what we can gather, you seem like a fully functioning human being again. How do you look at it now from where you were? People who hear these stories and they see these stories and they listen to your story and they think, boy, how would I be able to cope with that if the damage is permanent? I think that scares a lot of people into thinking that, first off, denial that it won't happen to them because they don't want to think about the consequences that you suffered, for example. Or secondly, that if it does happen to me, I think maybe I'm just better off dying. I wouldn't want to go through all the pain of recovery and this damage that still could be permanent. Even if I got a lot of feeling and movement back, it might not never be the same again. Maybe I won't speak properly again. People have a lot of vanity and pride, so this stuff can happen.
Well, from where I was to where I'm at, so I would try and do a children's puzzle. It was like 10 big pieces, and I would time myself, and it took me 20 minutes, and then it took me 15 minutes, to just have the brain power, the skills to put together that puzzle. And there was definitely dark times. They were trying to think if I had to be set up with Dragon software, which is software that would let me speech to type. They never thought I would use my right hand to type again. I mean,
Wow.
it's not as quick as this one, but it still moves pretty well, and I can still type. So I understand what you asked, and how could there be hope for people who might have permanent issues. What I want to say is the best way to avoid permanent issues is you need to work your butt off in physical therapy, because the recovery that you make in the first month that's your best time for recovery, is that first month. And then the second
Really?
month, 6 months. The harder you can work and the harder you can push yourself, the better your recovery is going to be. So the ironic, or the hard part, is when you're at your lowest moments, just after you've had the stroke, is when you need to work the hardest. You're in the darkest you've ever been, probably in my life. You needed to work the hardest. And fortunately, my nurses were very good in telling me that. So I would try and work and take extra walks. You go for 50 steps and then 100. So what I would tell people going through a stroke, or who have a loved one with a stroke, try and get them to do all the rehab they can. Encourage them as much as you can. Any visitors that they can have, any text messages, anything. It's very encouraging. People who might have a permanent disability, I can empathize with that. Maybe not to the level. I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm not able to run. I can walk and do weird dances or
You
things
couldn't
like
run.
that.
You couldn't run if you tried?
It would look like my leg was caught in a bear trap, or like that woman in Jurassic Park. I could shuffle. I could never cleanly run. People would look at me and think there's something wrong with that guy's leg. But, so be it. I should say this. I could outrun some people. I could not outrun
Okay.
some others. It looks terrible. I've lost some function. Some days I wake up, I'll have muscle cramps, unbelievable muscle cramps, unbelievable pain. Um, my hand will be in a kind of a claw until it gets going for the day.
Mhm.
When I get into a
Wow.
cold weather car, I'll have uncontrollable shaking of my right side. Just weird things, but you know, there's always hope of you know it's a great question. I don't know what I would tell someone who has more permanent issues. Like, I guess the way I would look at it is, you're not dead.
Mm.
There's there's always something, hopefully, that can drive you on. You know,
Yeah. You
there's
also have
there's
total
there's a lot
clarity,
of
right?
there's a lot of sad things in life. If my wife died tomorrow, I'd be very grateful for the time I had with her up until now. I hope she'd feel the same about me. If you've had a stroke, the sad statistics are you're more likely to have one in the following couple years after, up to 5 years. After
Oh,
that, it's considered a new incident. But you know, I looked it up. Even with a minor stroke, they expect a couple years to be gone off your life, but that doesn't, cherish the years you have left and try and make everything you you can out of the time that you have. Like, I think it's appropriate that you have sunshine in your first day pod logo, because when I got out of that rehab facility, it said, it's Aaron's time to shine, and it was a big sunshine guy with sunglasses on. So time to shine. It was my first day,
wow.
after inpatient stroke therapy.
That's beautiful.
Yay! And as a reminder, we are talking with Aaron Krueger. If those of you who just joined us, he survived a stroke and he's telling the tale of how that happened and what happened. He's also in recovery from alcohol addiction, which he is no longer involved in. So he's free of that now. Doesn't mean he's an addict for the rest of his life either. Just saying. Brian says, "Hey, Aaron, I was really impressed with your powerful stories. It takes a lot of courage. Thank you, Michael, Leanne, and Aaron." Well, thank you, Brian. You're the best.
Yes.
We love you. Corey also said, "Great question." I think he was referring to what you were just covering. So well said and well discussed. We have a few more minutes left before we wrap up the show. What else would you like to express? Because stroke awareness is clearly important to you. And this, do you find it odd? Because I think about opioid addiction. I think about substance use disorder. And I went through it myself, and I just feel more of a connection to it now because it happened to me. And I guess that's selfish and ego driven in a way, but at the same time, it also helps me understand it a lot better. And it makes me feel like I want to help people in a way. And I wonder how you reckon with that, with whether it's the stroke or alcoholism or either or.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because sometimes a stroke can make people less empathetic. It can affect not only your
Mm.
physical aspects, but it can affect your emotions as well. It just depends where in your brain
Yeah.
the stroke happened. But I do think that having a stroke makes me want to reach out to people, or having an issue with alcohol, just to, you never know who you're going to help. And when you meet someone on the street, you never know what they're going through that day. And these are things that I'm saying, and I don't want to come off like a better person than I am, because I definitely have days where, I can be a jerk to my kids or a jerk to my wife. And, I'm not trying to be preachy to anyone, but it's just like, it's something I have to tell myself to step back and think about, and, um, you know, share as much as you can, help others when you can. I really appreciate when Govier is open and honest about his issues, because what that does is it opens up people to be able to talk about theirs. I haven't, necessarily shared mine on a scale such as this, and it's something I'm comfortable with doing. There's another, um, you know, he's more of strictly a baseball guy, but he's very open and honest about his struggles with alcohol, and he talks about them on his shows. 15-year or 18-year or whatever recovery. So there are people out there that you wouldn't expect to be open up these topics, about these topics, but it gets rid of the stigma when more people are willing to talk about it. And it can affect anyone at any time. There's no one that's above this. It could happen to me again. I don't let my life be bogged down or depressed by that issue. I mean, it could
Yeah.
happen again, so I do appreciate that there's people out there willing to talk about addiction issues, substance abuse issues, and then also, you know, connections you can make through Twitter, are can be very real. I believe that Govier and I have a connection. There's another gentleman named Taylor. He hosts a pod. It's called Join the Ranks. We've actually spoken on the cell phone to each other, and how he ends the show. Him and his friend Joe that he works with. They give the National Suicide Prevention number at the end of every show, and they encourage people to reach out if they're having a struggle. And it comes across as genuine when he does it or when you do it, because you're genuine people willing to listen to people, and you never know who you might be able to help that day. So that's the important message. If you were looking for a closing thought, I think that would be the message: is you never know who you might help. Be willing, open, and honest to share. Be willing to listen. You might learn something. I think you'd mentioned in one of our chats, Govi, that people deal in all or nothing too much. There's going to be things about you that I don't necessarily agree with. There's things about me that you guys might not might not agree with, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn from each other, and just enjoy each other as human beings.
Wow. That is the perfect way to end this. This has been fantastic, Aaron. I feel like I'm speechless. I'm just so grateful that you went through all of it. I
I'm
feel like we
glad.
had 2 podcast episodes today. Like they were so
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like an Oreo. You can separate them, but you still got a little piece of one in there
Mhm.
somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you gave me lit,
Mhm.
learn, implement, teach. So one thing that I try and remember is to have an attitude of gratitude,
Mm.
because there's so much to be thankful for. I find myself getting angry at the smallest things, and it's something I need to do better
You get
myself.
angry at the smallest things? What's wrong with you?
I My attitude is not gratitude. That's what, I
Oh.
suffer from the human condition. I need to
I
do
don't know
better
anything
at
about
that.
that. Yeah, I'm very calm.
Yeah,
There's so
nothing
little,
bothers him.
so little in this world that frustrates me. I find a
Especially
lot
when
of,
he's driving. He's so
yeah,
calm and
Mhm.
cool.
I will never be part of a road rage incident. I never will. It's just not me.
Again.
So,
Oh goodness. That is the attitude of gratitude. I love that. That is so
Um,
important.
so yeah, I wanted to thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate you letting me have this discussion with you. I appreciate the interactions that we're having. Uh, Govier mentioned, it's awful hard to get what you want to say in a 2-minute Twitter video sometimes. So having this opportunity to have this discussion, it's something I really appreciate.
You did amazing. You did
Thank you.
amazing. I'm so grateful that you came on, and I still feel like there's probably a lot more. You've got so much goodness. I'd like to dive in on another show, maybe down the road, because I think the stroke awareness portion of it, especially coming from someone so young and so vital and somebody that was in the best shape of his life, I think that's super important because um, we wouldn't know. And then that whole piece about the first month of you doing the work, I know for me, I would probably be like, you'd be in your head way too much to do anything else. So I feel like that could be your message, really, and
yeah,
saving a
Yeah.
lot of lives.
you have full
Yeah.
clarity. That's the other thing we learned. You saying that you could think clearly, right? Totally could
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
from the big moment it happened and through the whole process. You were fully capable to like have your own inner monologue, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I don't know
And
that that's the case for everyone, but I could, yes.
okay, you could. And did they ever give you the reason why it did happen beyond it just a clot? Obviously, like was it a genetic thing, or did you ever get a concrete answer?
So, yeah, they never, it's kind of terrifying, but they never found anything wrong. And they said, this could happen again. They don't have me on a blood
Gosh.
thinner. They don't have me on anything. They couldn't link it to any medical condition or anything. So, but for someone to have a family of history of something, it has to start somewhere, and I'm just that person that started that family history.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, look at you. You're building a legacy.
Holy smokes. That's pretty crazy. Okay.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, wow is the word. Aaron Krueger bringing it, being honest, direct, telling it like it is, with some empathy and a heart of gold. That helps too. But he also has a sense of humor. And that's what we pride ourselves on the show here. We like to talk about legit issues like this, the stuff that our lives are based on. But we try to do it without being, cheesy or lame about it or like inauthentic. Like we're trying to sell you on something. Oh, we have a comment before we go. This is from Corey. Corey says, "Hi, Corey. Wow, we never
Corey.
see you on this show. This is unusual." Say hi, Leanne.
I just said hi, Cora, but you were talking.
Say hi to the whole family. They might be watching.
Hi, Jazz. Hi, kids. Hi, everybody.
Okay, anger is so natural. It facilitates fear and retreat and attack. It's quite an accomplishment to understand and channel the response positively, as Aaron has done. Kudos to you, Aaron, from Corey. Well, thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
Look at that.
Wow.
Anger is natural. It does have a place. But if you find that maybe you're annoyed all day long with a lot of angry moments, maybe there's, you might want to balance that out with a bit more gratitude. I know I need to work on that. Don't get so upset about stubbing my toe or, what else do I get upset about? Leanne, what's a good one? Come on. You're there.
The cutie of the week when you're driving.
The cutie of the week?
You call it something else. You never call them cuties, but you're always arguing about the drivers on the road. That's the one that just jumps out on me all the time.
Oh, this week's asshole? Yeah. There's always some. Yeah, every time I'll be driving around. Oh, there's this week's asshole. He cut me off. Thank you very much. So, and it's always a man, usually. So,
of course,
although women are on their cell phones, they're on their cell phones talking. I've seen that too. So you're not exempt entirely. Mm-hmm. Anyways, this is off topic. We thank you for joining us, Aaron. You guys could follow him on Twitter, like we said, Fantasy T-Ball. Fantasy T, the letter T, ball. And you can check out his videos about snacks. He's working on his videos, and they're going to keep getting better, right? We're looking forward to the next one.
It's the littlest amount of fantasy baseball talk you could imagine, and snacks in a 2-minute video. But also in the future, I might slide in some tips, just not stroke awareness, but other things you can be aware of that people might genuinely learn from, while trying to mix in weird, humor. Right now, I have a prop that is supposed to arrive in about a week. I'm going to do maybe a giveaway to like a fantasy baseball site if people guess what the next snack is. So I want to, people love free stuff. So
especially snacks.
Yeah, snacks are huge. Snacks are a big deal in this country and in Canada too. All of North America loves snacks. There it is. Yeah.
Some of the snacks might end up being healthy. Maybe I sneak an apple into the show.
Oh, wow. Well, that won't be fun, but sure.
I love apple. If it's a Granny Smith apple, I'm in. It's got to be Granny Smith. So
yes.
That's my preference.
Well, thank you both.
You were fabulous,
Aaron, thank you so much for joining us. Remember, stroke awareness, be fast. And for those of you that are struggling with substance use disorder, whether it's alcohol, opioids, cocaine, anything at all, caffeine is out of control, your sex addiction, gambling, you've lost all your money because you gamble it all away and you still can't stop. It's a compulsive issue for you. These all apply to all of us, and we're working through it. You can contact me on Twitter at MJGovier, G-O-V as in Victor, I-E-R. I'd be happy to talk to you about any of that stuff. Like we said, Aaron, Fantasy T-Ball on Twitter. He's happy to take your DMs as well, I assume. And, of course, email the show, firstdaydpod@gmail.com. Leanne doesn't use Twitter very much. You can just email us. She'll happily respond.
Yes.
And that'll do it. That's another episode of the First Day Pod. Don't forget the book club, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Times. Email firstdaydpod@gmail.com for the link to the Zoom. We'll gladly accept you. And until then, we thank Aaron Krueger. Thank you so much, everybody out there. Take it easy now.
Bye.
Bye.